happens because I think it's good for people to be aware of. And every dairy farm everywhere in the world, there's an underpaid guy who takes his left hand and puts a glove on it up to his shoulder, and he sticks his hand into the cow's rectum up to his elbow, and he grabs the cow's uterus. You can feel the uterus through the rectal wall, and you hold it steady, and with your right hand, you take what looks like a knitting needle, and you jam it into her vagina, right through the cervix, and you inject sperm that you took from a bull. Now, she will become impregnated and she will not object because she's chained up by the neck and she can't turn around and stop you. And then you go on to the next one, the next one, the next one.
So what?
9 months later, after her gestation is finished, she will have a calf, which she didn't volunteer for, but this is now her baby. And she will look at that calf, and the calf looks up at mom, and all the farmhands gather around, because I got to tell you, there's nothing cuter than this big bag of bones of this little calf who's just, and this is like the first hour of life. And then they say, well, wait a minute, you don't want that calf to suckle, because that milk is what we're going to sell. The milk that's made for her calf is we're going to sell. So we have an implement that solves that problem, and that's a wheelbarrow. So you put the calf in a wheelbarrow and you carry the calf away. Now, the mother-infant bond is the strongest bond we have in nature. She will follow, and she'll follow like effectively in her own bovine way, saying, this is my baby. And then a gate will hit her in the face, and she will stand right there and cry out. And the calf, if the calf is male, will very soon be killed for veal, because you can't use a male in the dairy industry. And if that calf is female, she will be put in an isolation hutch, fed milk replacer. And when she's about a year old, she'll get a hand up her butt, and she'll be impregnated. Now, in nature, a cow lives to be about 20. On a dairy farm, their milk production, although they're impregnated every single year, slacks off by about age 4. And then they are hung up by their leg, and they are slit for low-grade beef. So the dairy industry is a meat industry.
Yes, so?
It just takes you a little while to get there. And every dairy cow is impregnated.
You've said that 3 or 4 times, so?
Artificially, they're separate.
Some of them aren't.
Separated from their calf. And we just kind of put up with this. And during each pregnancy, she is continued to be milked. The estrogen comes down those milking tubes. It gets into this little swimming pool full of milk when they throw in the rennet, which is this genetically engineered enzyme that makes it clot. Then you throw in the bacteria. They give it that funky fermented flavor. And people get hooked on this stuff. And you're eating this mixture of estradiol along with a huge amount of fat and these animal proteins that have casomorphins in them. And everybody gets hooked on this thing. And your average American eats 77,000 calories of cheese every year.
Cheese?
And then they think they got fat from eating bread. It wasn't the bread. It was that hunk of cheese that was in between there that could explain the entire weight problem we have.
So you're saying also that then men who are drinking the dairy products or eating the dairy products there's an implication for their own hormone levels and their own sort of sperm counts, etc.
Okay, well, does that pan out with observation?
Is there any evidence for this that drinking milk as a man will reduce your sperm count?
Exactly, that has been discovered in New York State. Researchers went into a fertility center.
Fertility center.
And you do sperm counts on men. And when you do a sperm count, what you're looking at is the count, the number of little sperm. You also look at their morphology, meaning their shape.
Yes.
And their motility, meaning...
Yes, how much they wiggle around.
Are they swimming straight? And what they have shown in at least 2 studies that I'm aware of, that men who consume the most cheese have the lowest sperm counts and the worst motility and morphology. Motility and morphology. And the reason... of course, is you're swallowing estrogen every day, but it gets worse than that. When you eat cheese, you're eating something that's 3/4 fat. It's really high in calories.
No, Neal.
And added to your chicken fat and beef fat and the fat that people get all over the place, you're gaining body weight. And guys are struggling with this and mistakenly blaming carbs and so forth.
No.
As you gain body weight, every fat cell in your body is an estrogen factory. What I mean is your testosterone goes into a fat cell and estrogen comes out. You have enzymes called aromatase enzymes that take that testosterone from your bloodstream And the more body fat you have, the more they are reducing your testosterone because they're converting it to estradiol.
Is this in part, in your view, why there's been a decline in testosterone in men over the last couple of decades?
Without question. I can reduce your testosterone level within a matter of a couple of weeks.
I believe that, Neal.
Just by putting you on a cheesy, meaty diet. The more your body fat expands, the more your testosterone level is neutralized. And it gets worse. Because there's estrogen in the dairy itself, that adds to the estrogen your body is now making in your body fat. An animal-based diet is just a recipe for hormone haywire.
You know, I have to ask about the carnivore diet, which is, you know, I've had guests on this podcast that weren't health experts or even talking about health or food or nutrition at all, but certain guests, and one in particular, who is on the carnivore diet, because, you know, I also think about Michaela Peterson, who I think is a wonderful person, and she's also on the carnivore diet. She had loads of health complications in her life to the point that I think she was virtually disabled at one point, in bed, couldn't move, lots of pain, lots of problems. And then she went on a carnivore only diet, which meant that she eats pretty much only steak with salt and pepper, I believe. Don't want to get that wrong. And all of her health problems went away. And when you hear about those stories, you go, Jesus, that's incredibly compelling. I'm not saying that that is the correct diet at all, because I've sat here with enough nutritionists and health experts to know that there's a general consensus that you want as much plants on your plate as you possibly can. Yeah, with a little bit of protein. They seem to be pretty decided that a little bit of sort of
still
chicken breast isn't a problem. But there is a school of thought, and there are a group of people that just eat meat alone, and they seem to be doing okay. Is there any diets? Is there any research that has been done on people that are on a carnivore diet that you're aware of?
Not really. There's a couple of prospective cohort studies available. That's it.
I don't know.
The answer is no.
Really looked at the carnivore diet very well. It's a ludicrous diet. First of all, it's very fiber deficient, and somebody like that is going to spend hours in the bathroom struggling.
Next.
To go to the bathroom because they're not getting any fiber. Right. So that person goes to the drugstore. They'll get Metamucil, which is psyllium fiber.
Granville, fetch your cloth.
Which is a seed fiber, because they don't want to eat the seeds, but they'll sell you the fiber to counteract it. You're getting a massive amount of cholesterol. Now, the one thing you could say for it is if a person says, well, I'm chucking out a bunch of just sugar and I'm chucking out the cheese and so forth, and I'm focusing on meat. Well, half of what you're doing is good, is you're getting rid of some other things that were frankly not so good for you. The donuts and things aren't very good, but a meat-based diet is a romantic fantasy. When people think of themselves as hunter-gatherers, we are gatherers first, hunters second. Our nature is not to be racing over the hilltop and capturing an antelope and bringing it back to the applause of our families. That's a romantic notion that people like to pretend. And if you look at human cultures over the millennia, right, we are clearly designed for and have followed either an exclusively plant-based diet or a mostly plant-based diet. Now, that said, you know, we'll take what we can get. You know, when people don't have tremendous means, if a rabbit comes by and they can capture them in their snare and they'll eat them, they will. Having said that, I have to say I put this question to Richard Leakey some years ago.
Who?
And I asked him, I said, you know,
who's that?
Richard Leakey was a wonderful paleoanthropologist. His father was Louis Leakey, and Louis Leakey is the one who launched Jane Goodall into Tanzania to study chimpanzees and Diane Fossey to study the gorillas. Louis Leakey was a wonderful paleoanthropologist, and his son, Richard, worked for many, many years in Kenya and died recently. But I put this question to him. I said, all the work that you've done studying human behavior and human diets, aren't we naturally carnivores? And he looked at me in the eye and he said, understand, we are not carnivores and never have been carnivores. What allowed people to start to eat as if they're carnivores was the advent of the Stone Age, when we were able to make stone tools that became axes and arrowheads. Left to your own devices, without those tools, you can't chase down a deer or an antelope. You might occasionally get some roadkill or something like that. Or not roadkill, but you know what I mean. You would get you could scavenge from something left over by a lion or a hyena. Yeah. And in fact, that he believed that is how meat eating began.
Yes.
Was that there was kill left over in a carcass that wasn't fully eaten by an actual carnivorous animal.
Yes.
And then once we got fire, which we didn't have before, once we got fire, now you're on something. Now you can actually make meat, at least over the short term, safe to eat.
I want to talk a lot more about hormones, but just to close off the section about weight we were talking about, we were talking originally about the blueberries. There's another group of foods which you include in the power foods diet, one of which is and I'm going to get this word wrong, cruciferous vegetables.
Yeah, cruciferous vegetables.
That's exactly what I said. Say that again?
Cruciferous.
And what
cruciform, the flower on broccoli or cauliflower or Brussels sprouts. When they're growing, they present this little flower that has kind of a little cross shape in it. So it's called cruciferous.
Cruciferous.
Yeah. And they're healthy foods. They are good in many ways.
Good for weight loss specifically.
Yeah, they are. They're one of the top foods that the Harvard researchers associated with weight loss. And frankly, it's kind of for a no-brainer reason. They're really high in fiber. A cup of broccoli has maybe 5 grams of fiber in it, but all of about 50 or 60 calories, like none. So it's very, very filling, very low in calories.
So what's in that category? Then broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, arugula and lots more. Yes. They have a second benefit. Researchers at Johns Hopkins have been studying them not for weight loss, but for cancer prevention. And they find that, maybe not surprisingly, people who eat more of these have less of various forms of cancer. But it turns out that what they do is a surprise. If you eat a couple of servings of broccoli today and the same thing tomorrow, then by about the following day, at that same time of day, your liver is making more of what are called phase 2 enzymes. The phase 2 enzymes are there to remove toxins from your body. So if you inhale bus exhaust or some other toxin that's in your body, your liver is there to filter them out and get rid of them. And your liver is more powerful if the cruciferous vegetables were in your diet, because they cause it to make more of these detoxification enzymes. But there are lots of these foods. And some of them are not foods, but they're flavors, like cinnamon. Mm-hmm. Cinnamon has a compound in it that scientists didn't know what to call it. They ended up calling it cinnamaldehyde. Researchers are not always very creative with their naming. But
or anything else, Neal.
Cinnamon contains this thing called cinnamaldehyde.
You said that.
And it's associated with weight loss. And it appears that it works by increasing metabolism. So what researchers have done, there are many of these studies, but there was a 2017 study where researchers, all they did in a randomized trial was give cinnamon or nothing. And this the amount of cinnamon was about 1 teaspoon per day, which you could throw in water or whatever. And what they showed was about a 7 or 8 pound weight loss in a matter of several weeks. And so I'm not recommending that people just add cinnamon to bread that's slathered with butter, because you can undo the power. But the whole point of the power foods dietary approach is, rather than thinking about all the things I can't eat, let's bring in, we know that berries are good. Yeah, I make a muffin, and instead of cooking it with butter, I'm going to cook it in a healthy way, and I'm going to have blueberries in it. So the food's they have to be good, so that you'll like them, so that you'll serve them to your family, and then the weight loss just kicks in automatically.
A teaspoon of cinnamon per day caused an average weight loss of half a pound a week. That's on page 24 of your book, which was really surprising to me. The other thing that I found quite surprising was you talk about hot peppers. I love hot peppers. And you say that they're a great weight loss food.
Who knew that hot feeling that you experience afterwards, it's not just hot on your tongue. You can put a sensor on your forehead and you will actually see the body is burning off calories as a result of eating the spicy food. I'm not suggesting that people take a couple of jalapenos and just eat that, but what I am suggesting is that there are spices. There's cinnamon. There is the capsaicins. Those are the hot in the hot peppers. There's also ginger. They all have these kinds of effects where they readjust your body chemistry to be a calorie burner. So the foods taste great. You're not increasing your workout, but the weight comes off. And I don't want people to get modest about this. We're in a study right now And the study has been going on for about 18 weeks now. One of the guys in the study has lost 60 pounds already. Now, I don't encourage people to lose weight